You're listening to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. And now, your host.
Thank you and good evening, good morning, wherever you may be listening around the world or in the comfort of your own home. Tonight we're going to get into the whole topic, a few things, but we're mostly going to be talking about my guest, Stephanie Osborn, her book series, ebook series, Division 1, Urban Legend, the Urban Legend of MIB. Now, of course, that's not the title of the books, but it's about the MIB in that Division 1 series. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about her time in the space program and also a little bit about the shuttle disaster, but not too much. Now, I want to let all my listeners know that my guest does have just got over a cold, and so please be patient with her and everything like that. So please welcome my guest to the show, Stephanie Osborn.
Hi there. And a cold is putting it mildly. I'm getting over pneumonia.
Well, I didn't want to go into that much detail, but
well,
yeah, but
it's that nasty flu that's going around. I came down with that stuff, and bam, I was in pneumonia inside a week. It's nasty. It's bad stuff.
It is. So, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I really am one of those rocket scientists you hear about. I worked in the civilian and military space programs for over 20 years. I sat console for space shuttle missions. I helped to train astronauts. I had a friend on board Columbia, and tomorrow actually marks the anniversary of the Columbia disaster, and I lost her in that disaster. While writing my first book, which was about a space shuttle disaster that occurred during reentry. Yeah, it was kind of freaky. My fictional scenario was sabotaged. The real world events were just bad luck. But that was kind of the beginning of the end for me, and I started thinking in terms of maybe I want to get out of this business. And so I wound up getting out, and it took me a while to polish that book and get it published, simply because it was so painful at that point. But it did get published, and it's called Burnout, The Mystery of STS-281, and it's available in print and ebook, and that got me started on a writing career. And as they say, the rest is history.
All right.
So here I am.
Yeah. As far as writing that book, when it just, you said right before the disaster?
Yes. It came out after.
Oh.
But the first draft was complete and entire and in the hands of my writing mentor when the disaster occurred. And I didn't have to change a word.
Wow.
Yeah. He had to talk. I was getting ready to trash it, and he talked me out of it. But, he said, look, Steph, you worked in that business for how long? Of course you know how a failure scenario would work. Of course you got it right. You knew your stuff.
Yeah.
You trained for it, And he's right, and that's really all it was, but it messes with your head just the same. So it was kind of rough. And Kalpana Chawla was the first astronaut from India, female astronaut, and she and I had met when I had helped train her and the other crew for I don't even remember which mission it was. I know it flew back in 97. And that was her first mission, and I helped train them on the experiments that were going to fly. And we kind of got to know each other, and then whenever I was in Houston for NASA, whatever, If I had a few minutes, I'd run over to the astronaut office and see if she was in, and if so, we'd sit down and have coffee and chat. So it was a real shock.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into it because I know it was tough on you. Now, like I mentioned, talked to you before the show and everything, like not tonight, but through emails, that somebody that graduated from the high school that I went to was on the Challenger shuttle disaster.
Yes. And that anniversary was this past weekend.
Yeah. I actually shared it on my show's website for this day in history. I'm trying to remember the guy's name if I can remember it. I know it was a guy, but I can't remember his name. It wasn't the Asian guy.
Up the crew. You're going to have to overlook me because I'm going to be coughing and everything else tonight.
Oh, that's fine.
Scobie, Smith, McNair, Onizuka, Jarvis.
It might have been Jarvis. I'm not too sure. I know he had like kind of short, wavy hair. Oops. What the heck? I just had music playing for some reason, and it's like, no, I did not.
Of course, I've done fine all day today, and I get on the air in this app.
Well, like I said, that's why I mentioned it beforehand and everything like that, for everybody to be patient and everything like that, so they would understand. And my listeners are actually pretty good about understanding.
Well, I just apologize. This stuff has done a number on me, and it's just not fun. I mean, I'm pretty much.
Yeah.
The bugs are all gone. It's just the after effects, you know.
Oh yeah.
That don't want to let go.
Yeah.
The hacking, cough, and all that kind of jazz. I couldn't tell you which one it might be, but
let me see if I can get it up.
Michael Smith, Dick Scobie, Ron McNair, Ellison Onizuka, and Gregory Jarvis are the males on the.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna punch up Google and.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at a picture. So.
Yeah, well, that's what I can. I don't want the Challenger car. Yeah, of course, my computer wants to be stupid.
Of course, whenever you're in a hurry, stuff goes wrong.
Alright, let's see. I'm looking at a crew photo, but doesn't give the name, so I believe it was Michael Smith, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, is it 4 in the back, 3 in the front?
Oh, hold on, it just went off that image.
Okay. Because I can identify them for you, because I'm sitting here looking at the same picture.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my computer. Hopefully everybody can still hear me. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got people in the chat, so yeah, they can hear me. I just wanted to make sure before. Let's see. Now, where is it? of course my computer don't want to work right. Okay, I'm looking at one image. It looks like it is, let's see, quite possibly dead center front row.
Okay, that's going to be Dick Scobie.
Okay. He graduated.
Three in the front, 4 in the back. The 2 women are in the back. There's a U.S. flag on the left.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's Dick Scobie in the middle.
Yeah. He graduated from the high school that I went to. Now he graduated well before I did, because I didn't graduate till '92, but I was still in.
Oh, you young whippersnapper! You.
I was in actually June. No, I was in high school at the time of the disaster, and I believe it was high school, or maybe it was junior high. But I learned of it when I was in high school, about him graduating there.
I had just started. My career, really. I was an astrophysicist working on a DoD project, and it was to have been a space-based sensor, and that's about all I can tell you, or I'd have to kill you.
Yeah. Trust me, I know all about that high security clearance. In the Navy, I was working down by the nuclear reactors. I can't say much more than that.
Anyway, I was the resident astronomer for this space-based observing platform. Because obviously, if you're going to do defense work, you don't want to be firing off at Alpha Centauri, because it'll be a long time before you know if you hit anything.
Yeah.
But phase 1 was R&D, and phase 2 was to have been prototype development and testing. And I was one of 3 people who were candidates for payload specialist to go up with a full-scale prototype on the shuttle and test it. And so then the Challenger occurs. And they basically grounded the shuttle fleet. And for an indefinite amount of time. And so they canceled phase 2 of my project.
Oh, wow.
So I did not... I was probably the most... At that point in time, probably the most likely candidate of the 3 to actually have made it up.
Yeah. Now, working at NASA, without going into too much detail, but what was it like working with NASA?
NASA, that was a job that it had 2 parts. Okay, you had your background stuff where you sat in an office and you prepped for the mission. I was what's called a timeline engineer. I was one of the people responsible for scheduling the sequences of events that occurred on board the shuttle. And there were interesting tidbits to be had in creating a timeline from scratch, but a lot of it was administrative work, and I'll have to admit that didn't thrill me much. Well, it's sitting at a computer all day, entering data, structuring it, all this kind of stuff. The fun part was when we transitioned to sitting console in the control center. That was the point at which it got really, really, really cool. I can promise you, there is no adrenaline rush like launch. The only possible way it could get better than sitting console for launch would be being on the bird for launch.
Yeah.
And I got to see so many cool things that we were discovering as I was watching it happen. And it was just, it's not a job that I would trade for. There's not enough money in the world to pay me to have done something else.
Yeah. Well, I bet it was really interesting to actually get to see those shuttles launch, because a lot of kids nowadays, the most they get to see is like the SpaceX rockets launch.
Yep. Well, I was fortunate enough to be present, sometimes just down in Florida on vacation. You could see that sucker launch from just about anywhere on the Florida Peninsula.
Yeah.
I have seen it several times from Orlando. I've seen it once from as far south as Palm Beach.
Yeah.
I've seen a night launch. That was absolutely fascinating, because it's like you're standing there and you're looking east and everything is pitch dark.
Mm-hmm.
And then all at once the east lights up like it's sunrise.
Oh yeah, it was the same thing a few weeks back when SpaceX launched the thing, the rocket, and it just lit up the night sky with like a bright blue, baby blue, but bright, and it lit it up like it was almost like daylight.
Yeah, it's like watching a fast sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sun is the actual engines as the thing ascends. But then at a certain point, it's really kind of fun to watch, because as it gets higher and higher and higher, it slows down.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it starts to drop again, very, very slowly back towards. Because what's happening is it's getting close to its maximum altitude, and it's starting to go away from you.
Yeah.
So it starts to go past the curvature of the Earth relative to where you are, and so it looks like it's dropping back down toward the horizon.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to watch.
Now, I know you can't probably go into too much detail, but what was the listed cause of like Challenger or Columbia and stuff like that?
Oh, I can go into detail. I mean, the thing that people don't realize is NASA is not military. NASA does not have classification schemes. You don't have classified information there. The only thing that you might consider as classified is the crew medical information, and that's just because that's just like your medical information would be considered basically kind of classified, because it's between you and your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
That's private information, and so that's really the only information that isn't talked about. They put out all kinds of reports. The Challenger, it was basically just because of the weather. It was too cold. They're right there on the coast, so it was moist, and the temperature dropped down low enough that you got frost forming. The O-rings, the solid rockets, the fuel inside them is kind of like rubberized concrete.
Okay.
And so it has to, just like concrete, you can't pour just great big sheets of concrete or it cracks, right?
Yeah.
But if you got a crack in that fuel, then the fuel's going to burn unevenly. So you pour the fuel in segments and let it cure, harden and cure. And then each one of those segments is basically a donut. And then you stack the donuts. And you connect them, and that creates your solid rocket. Each one of those donuts has, junctions, and because they can shift and move, there are rubberized O-rings kind of a gasket, like a rubber gasket, that fits in between each segment. And those O-rings are designed to be squished by the weight above them and to fill in the gaps so that you don't get any exhaust blowing through the joints in between the segments. Am I making sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. If you see it, I don't have the chat room up, so if you see any questions, be sure to let me know.
Okay, yeah, that just it really getting into all the information that you're putting out there.
Okay. So what happened was the temperature got down cold enough to make the O-rings start to solidify. They started to harden. And so they lost their flexibility. And they lost that ability to squish and fill in the gaps.
Okay.
And so what wound up happening was that things shifted. The O-rings didn't fill in the gaps, and you started to have exhaust blowing through one of those joints. And actually burned through the O-ring. And it started to burn through the external casing of the solid rocket. Well, now you've got a jet coming out the side of the rocket. That's creating thrust. Instead of thrust down, though, it's thrust to one side. So now it's kind of near the bottom of the rocket. So now the bottom of the rocket is getting shoved to one side. And so that's twisting the rocket relative to the shuttle itself. And it's starting to apply torque to the place where the rocket is attached to the stack. The stack is the term that represents all of the pieces of the launch vehicle.
Okay.
The bird, the external tank, and both solid rockets. Okay, that's known as the stack. So now it's starting to torque the connection where that SRB is connected to the rest of the stack.
Okay.
And what wound up happening was it also started to impinge, this jet started to impinge on the external tank.
Okay.
Like a blowtorch.
And it just punched its way through, basically.
Right. So and it punched its way through at the most critical, dang stupid place it could have. And it caused you've got one tank in there that's liquid hydrogen, one tank in there that's liquid oxygen, and it basically ruptured one of the tanks and turned it into a jet that slammed it upwards into the upper tank, and now you've got, boom, both of them have ruptured, kablam!
Yeah.
And that was it.
Alright, yeah, no, now that was, Challenger was coming, the one...
That's Steph's simple version, okay? That's Steph's simple version. It's a lot more complex than that, but that's the simple
Yeah. Trust me, when I'm talking about the paranormal, I tried to break it down in the simplest explanation that I can so people can actually understand, because if I use big words and stuff like that, then they're like, what?
Well, I can go into the technical terminology, but I don't think that does anybody any good.
No. Now that was Challenger was the shuttle that was coming down. That was over Texas, correct?
No, Challenger was the one that blew up shortly after launch.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right.
Columbia was the one that had my friend on board that broke up over Texas.
Okay, yeah, I sometimes get those two mixed up.
Everybody does. The only reason I keep them straight is because I have close ties to the program, and I just know. Columbia was the bird that I worked with the most during my tenure working with NASA. Columbia had a similar cause because, okay, that external tank, you've got liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen. Those are cryogenic fuels. They're cold. They need to be kept cold. So the external tank had a layer of foam insulation sprayed all over it. Well, you can't. It's huge. You cannot get a big enough kit of foam spray insulation to spray all over it in one go. So you have to do it in
layers.
Right, you do a section over here, and then here's the next section you spray on, and then here's the next section. Well, I don't care how good you are, there's always going to be a slight interface there where you finished, this part and started the next part.
Yeah.
And so once again, they decided, okay, it'll be safe to launch because we're not as cold as we were when Challenger occurred. So this should be safe, right? It turns out frost crystals tended to form in those areas where one batch of foam had been sprayed on and then the next batch of foam had been sprayed on. And this had been producing what was known as spalling. Little pieces of the foam tended to break off during launch and ascent phase. And it turns out that in the case of Columbia, nobody thought anything about, it's just foam. I mean, it's lightweight, right?
Yeah.
A big whoop. You hit it, it breaks apart. Well, nobody stopped to think. Actually, the engineers did. The leadership didn't.
Yeah, that's usually how it works.
About the relative closing speeds, because when you're looking at the kind of speeds that the shuttle achieves within seconds after launch,
yeah,
I mean, it's on orbit in 8 minutes.
Yeah,
it's 350 miles up in 8 minutes.
Yeah, and it's pulling a ton of G's.
Bingo. So the closing speed between an attaché case sized piece of foam and the leading edge of I believe it was the port wing, was substantial. And so when it hit, yes, the foam broke apart, but it also punched a hole through the leading edge of the wing and gouged a groove down the bottom of the wing. Well, guess what? Guess where the highest temperatures during reentry occur?
On the wings.
On the leading edges of the wings.
Yeah.
And on the bottoms of the wings are the second highest temperatures. So, it gouged a hole. We believe that it also dislodged some of the flashing around the landing gear wheel well, because we saw something float off on orbit. And there is evidence to indicate that during re-entry we started getting blow-by, not just into the wing from that hole that was punched in the front edge of the wing, but also into the wheel well.
Okay.
So now you're getting all these hot gases blowing into the wing, and they're burning out the thermocouple sensors, further and further away from the hole, and they're starting to actually soften the metal struts that are the structural support of the wing.
Okay.
They're starting to melt. Okay. Now you've also got these same hot gases blowing into the wheel well for the landing gear. Now most people don't stop to realize those tires were inflated tires, just like on your car, just a whole lot bigger.
Yeah.
So when they start to heat up, have you ever been around a burning automobile or truck and had one of the tires explode from the heat?
I've never been around it, but I've seen videos of it and stuff like that.
I have, and it sounds like a bomb going off, and that's just like an 18-wheeler tire. What happens is the air inside the tire gets hot and starts to expand, and the tire begins to swell and swell and swell until the rubber can't handle it anymore, and then it blows apart. Well, Insofar as I can tell, what happened was you've got the wing structure has softened, the tires heat up, they expand, the tires blow apart.
Yeah. All right. Well,
and the wing structure cannot handle it, so the wing comes apart. Now you've lost a wing, you've lost all aerodynamic stability. The shuttle goes into an uncontrolled tumble and breaks apart.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go into a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more with Stephanie Osborn as we talk about the shuttle program, the NASA, and of course we're going to get into, shortly after this break, more into her book series, Division 1. We'll be right back after the short commercial break. Are you a ghost hunter or want to become one but don't have the equipment? Well, GhostStop.com has all your ghost hunting equipment needs. If you are a beginner, they have beginner ghost hunting kits on sale for $99.95, or for the seasoned ghost hunter that is missing that one piece of equipment, GhostStop.com has a laser grid scope on sale for $18.95. Click on the banner ad at the top of the Talk of the Night website and get shopping today. GhostStop.com, your one-stop shop for all your ghost hunting needs. Do you have a paranormal team? Are you a small-time author? Do you have a radio show that you would like to promote? Is there anything that you would like to get the word out there about but don't have a big budget? Well, Talking the Night has an opportunity for you to sponsor the show without breaking your wallet. Contact the show at talkingthenight@outlook.com or on the show's website or Facebook page for more details.
Do you think you have a haunted or cursed object? Well, Nicole Gaspard does, and in her book Haunted Vessels and Cursed Objects, she talks about her continued paranormal and supernatural ghost encounters, haunted dolls, and other items that are supposed to be haunted or cursed. Pick up your copy today on Amazon.com.
Just a mistake, what do you come back to me? Every step that you take, echo through me. Don't let me go.
Okay, and we are back with my guest Stephanie Osborn, and we're talking about we were talking before the break about what caused the shuttle disasters, and everything like that. But now I want to get into some more stuff, before a couple other things before we get into her book series. And like I was mentioned before the show, I like to play devil's advocate a little bit and everything like that, and ask some sometimes strange questions, but it's, and I completely understand some people don't know the answer, or they never had it happen or anything like that, or completely disavowed the question. But like the one guest I was talking about before the show, via text on Skype. But in the time that you were there at NASA, did you have any UFO sightings or hear of any UFO sightings by the staff?
No, it's kind of weird because you would think as much flying around and stuff as people did, if you're going to see something, you would. But no, I never heard of any sightings by crew, ground controllers, anything like that, the whole time I was there. Now, I myself, back when I was in college, I saw a UFO. I grew up outside in the rural area outside of Campbell, Kentucky, near Clarksville, Tennessee. If you've ever heard the song "Take the Last Train to Clarksville," that was written about my hometown. But insofar as I could tell, and it was really kind of interesting because I was out being an astronomy student. I was out stargazing, and I glanced over in the general direction of Clarksville and Fort Campbell, and here was this flying object with somewhat non-standard running lights, executing some somewhat odd maneuvers. The next day, there was an article in the newspaper. The Clarksville airport didn't know what to make of it. Wasn't any of their aircraft. The Fort Campbell airfield said it wasn't any of their aircraft. So, and I think the Fort Campbell airfield actually did pick it up on radar too.
Okay.
So to this day, I don't know what it was I saw.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It was an unidentified flying object, quite literally.
Yeah, and just to clarify with the listening audience, UFO does not mean that it is extraterrestrial. It just means that it's unidentified. We cannot say what it is, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'll give you a prime example. When SpaceX was launching their thing off the West Coast, out of Vandenberg and everything, I was at my day job and working the night, and I work at an amusement park, so I'm outside, and I'm on a ride. I couldn't see it from where I was, but guests got on the ride and went up to the front, and they were like, "Is that a UFO?" And so, like I said, I could not see it, and being into the paranormal field, I walked over, I looked up, I said, "You could say that, but actually that is a military rocket."
Yeah. And it's only a UFO until it's identified. And
Yeah.
then it ceases to be a UFO. But the thing of it is, I really kind of suspect that what I was watching was there were rumors to be a classified installation on the base there, and occasionally they would do some odd little maneuvers, and it may have been a classified maneuver. It may have been testing a new aircraft. That was the home of the 101st Screaming Eagles. And they typically used choppers to do their transport and skydiving and whatnot, and they may have had a new military helicopter trying to try it. I don't know,
Yeah, well, like Area 51, there was so many years that it was classified. They disavowed any knowledge of it, and then they finally had to come out about it. But a lot of that area was used for testing, like the U-2 spy plane,
Exactly.
SR-71.
And I knew some guys that flew in the area, so I knew what it was long before they started coming out with it on TV shows and stuff. And even the guys that were flying the standard high performance jets at the time, that were the jet jocks, the fighter pilots, they still weren't allowed to fly over certain of the areas. And it wasn't just the whole the whole test range out there was gridded off. So you had, and then they just Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, so forth. So it wasn't just Area 51. There were several grids in the test range that they weren't allowed to overfly because that's where they were developing the next generation stuff.
Yeah.
So.
But go ahead.
No, it's I totally get where you're coming from on that. That's just there's stuff that you just people are just not allowed to see because spies,
Yeah, well, like one the one UFO sighting that I had, and there's actually a spot out here in Southern California, not too far from me, where it's supposed to be a UFO hotspot, which I'm gonna have to go check out one of these days. But the one that I saw, it was traveling probably at speeds of like the shuttle re-entering. But what I saw is it came fast through the sky, stopped on a dime, and shot the other way, and then zigzagged back the other way. And that was nothing that I knew of that could actually do that. Like I mentioned last night on my show, that it was unidentified, but I could not say that it was of extraterrestrial nature because of all the secret stuff that is being tested at these one secret bases.
And two, a living creature, there's going to be repercussions to coming in at that speed and then stopping dead.
Yeah.
You're going to have something extremely high tech to compensate and keep from turning your assuming that there are occupants.
Yeah, well,
turning them into mush.
Yeah, well, like if it was possibly like new drone technology, where it's unmanned.
Yeah, and even so, you're looking at something that needs to be. You're looking at something that needs to be. You've got to have a structure that is capable of holding together under those kinds of stresses, because you're still looking at some serious inertial stresses there. You stop a craft traveling at those speeds on a dime, and it's going to put a hurt on the structural integrity of the craft.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's got people in it or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, it gets interesting. Where I find to tie it in with your whole paranormal thing, some of my research years ago, I encountered an interesting quotation, and it has been years ago, so I can no longer quote it exactly, and I can't even remember the guy's name, but I can tell you. Have you seen the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Yes, I have.
Okay, do you remember the French researcher in that movie?
I believe so.
Okay, that character was based on a real person.
Okay.
And he sat down and he looked at all of it. And pulled together all of the reports he could find from all over the world, and he looked at them. And he said, you know what, this is kind of interesting, because almost invariably the reports indicated something that was doing something that violated the laws of physics. Like screaming in and then coming to a dead stop without breaking apart. Or something like that. Making these wild, high-speed, high-angle maneuvers and stuff. Without any indication of any inertia or whatever. And he looked at that, and then he looked at the tendency of so many of the people reporting encounters to have unpleasant things being done to them. And he said, he came up with the notion, he said that I'm forced to come to the conclusion that these are not physical objects. I am forced to come to the conclusion that they are directed by intelligence, and I'm forced to come to the conclusion that the intelligences controlling them are malevolent. And then he came to a really, really, really interesting conclusion. By the time he combined all those, he said, and evidently he was not particularly necessarily a religious man, but he said, insofar as I have been able to find a word in our lexicons to describe them, the best word I've been able to come up with is demon.
Yeah. And like I said, we really don't know. I mean, last night I talked about some of the different races that people have described. Of course, Greys being the most familiar type of race, and everything, and of course, like the reptilians and the Nordics, which leads me to my next question, which is going to tie into your book series. Do you believe that the MIB could be real? Because when I talked about it last night, they talked about the ones that they caught on camera going into this hotel, the torment the staff there about a sighting and everything like that, but they described them as like what people have said the Nordics look like: big blue eyes, blonde hair, pale skin, stuff like that.
I know that there have been, I know there's a lot of speculation about the purported existence of men in black. I know that there have been excuse me, government classified programs that were tasked with looking into these
sightings.
Sightings, yes. And I know that actually started. I believe the first of them occurred during the latter part of World War II. The first such program. And you know, Project Blue Book was actually, it's the best known, but it was actually one of the latest. So there were several earlier such classified programs. It would not surprise me to discover that a lot of what people have reported as men in black were actually government employees working under these classified programs, trying to find out what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, that would be necessary, because especially when the modern age of UFOs started during World War II.
Yeah.
And so you've got all this stuff going on, and we knew that, you know, we had the Axis powers, but then we also knew that the Soviet Union, while fighting with us, was not exactly for us.
Yeah.
And in point of fact, you know, they infiltrated the Manhattan Project, and got information from their spies, and they had nuclear weapons almost before the war ended. Because of that. So you've got all this stuff going on. You start seeing all these weird sightings. Your military's first response is going to be, is it the Nazis? Is it the Japanese? Is it the Soviets? You know?
Yeah. So much to try and protect national security.
Exactly. And even and stop and think for a minute. Everybody's like, you need to reveal all this information. Have we seen UFO? Well, no, not necessarily. Because there's no guarantee that just because they're a spacefaring race, they're necessarily benevolent.
Yeah.
You know,
Like the reptilians, people claim that they're the nasty race of the extraterrestrial race.
yeah. And so, you know, if they're not particularly nice guys, and if you have evidence that, yea, verily they have been, I don't know if they got evidence or not, okay? That just was not someplace that I ever had occasion to go, either when I was working for NASA. Didn't fool with it. The DOD would have been who was fooling with it, but I never had occasion to find out any information when I was doing DOD type work. So I can't tell you one way or the other.
Yeah.
If they found out even, but if we postulate that they had, and if these guys are not nice, then then once again, national, and not only national but planetary security applies.
Yeah.
And you don't want them to know what you know about them.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, it's completely understandable, but there are those people that are going to be like, I want this information out there. I want to know. Well,
sorry, it don't work like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely understand. I mean, like I said, I tend to do research of my own until I actually have my own encounter. I can't speak on it and everything like that. I can only speculate what might be out there.
Well, and that's just it. And, you know, I'm not saying having had experience with classified matters,
Mm-hmm.
I understand the concept of national security issues.
Mm-hmm.
I had occasion to receive intelligence information from time to time, and we had to be very, very careful with that information.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because not only was it a security risk, but the lives of the agents who put their lives on the line to get that information were at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the guys that they were spying against found out that we knew this particular information, that could only have come from so and so.
Yeah.
You know, he's dead. He or she is now dead meat.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's aspects to things that people maybe don't realize or don't stop and think about if they haven't experienced working in these fields.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with that said, once again, I have not myself had any occasion, insofar as I know, we have not been visited. I have seen absolutely no hard evidence, and I'm speaking as a scientist here.
Yeah.
You know, no hard evidence that anybody from another stellar system has visited us. Okay, fine. You've been abducted. Bring me, you know, a stylus from their spacecraft, an ink pen, a rubbing of one of their control panels. Bring me an ashtray. You know, something to demonstrate that you were really there.
Yeah.
As opposed to a hallucination or something.
Yeah, because see, the burden of the proof falls on the person that had the sighting or the abduction or something like that.
I think it was Carl Sagan, once again, I can't quote him, but extreme, what was it? Extreme claims require extreme proof or something along those lines. That's not exactly the right word, but it gets the idea across.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to make a really, really huge claim, I was abducted by aliens, then you've got to be prepared to back it up with sufficient proof to the level of your claim.
Yeah.
And nobody has.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Bigfoot and stuff like that. I've had sightings, but I can say I've seen Bigfoot in person till I'm blue in the face, but there's no way that I could get proof because, of course, I didn't have camera working out in the middle of the redwood forest up in Northern California, so I couldn't get proof. But
right.
I know what I saw, but like I said, I can say it until I'm blue in the face, and it's up to the other person listening whether they believe it or not.
Right. I'll tell you something, though. By the time you're done looking at swamp apes and Bigfoot and Yeti and stuff like that, I actually have much less trouble believing that these are all subspecies of some undiscovered hominid.
Mm-hmm.
I have less trouble believing that than I have trouble believing that we've been visited by aliens from other stellar systems.
Yeah.
Because there's more evidence. I've seen more evidence for that than I have of the other.
Yeah. Alright, so real quick, before we go into the break, tell us a little bit about the ebook series Division 1.
Well, it's ebook and it's print.
Okay.
Division 1 is my take on that urban legend of the Men in Black. It's a little bit different from anything that you might have seen before, because in my universe, they are actually a law enforcement branch of the galactic government. The Galactic Coalition exists, the Pan-Galactic Coalition, and their law enforcement agency has divided the galaxy up into what we would term precincts. And Earth happens to be situated in Division 1, hence the name of the series. So it gets told, you are introduced, as the reader, you are introduced to this galactic civilization via Dr. Megan McAllister, who happens to be a NASA astronaut who winds up in the wrong place at the wrong time and runs across a criminal retrieval by Agent Echo of the Division 1 agency. And it turns out that, as in the urban legend, you know, they have the little gadgets that make people forget stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out it doesn't work on her. So she winds up getting drafted into the agency, and she becomes a Man in Black herself.
Yeah, almost like the movie Men in Black, where Will Smith's character chases down the alien. And
there are going to be similarities because they were using the same urban legends to jump off of that I'm using.
Yeah.
But it's not. I go in completely different directions with stuff. So it turns out that they're getting ready to inaugurate a new department, the Alpha Line, which will be their Special Forces department. This will be the department that, if there is an interstellar terrorist or an alien assassin or whatever, these are the guys who are going to get that job. And it's kind of Echo kind of compares them to the Texas Rangers. You know, we work in as partners. We work in teams of 2, but one situation gets one team. You know, it has to be something really, really big to get more than one team, which occasionally does happen with these guys. So anyway, I've got I've got a whole series, and there are already 5 books out in the series. The first book is called Alpha and Omega, and it's kind of the origin story. The second one is called A Small Medium at Large. Book 3 is A Very Unconventional Christmas. Book 4 is Tour de Force. Book 5 is Trojan Horse. Trojan Horse just came out this month. And then coming in this spring will be Texas Rangers. And I've got 2 more finished past that I'm polishing up now, with more on the way.
Okay, so we're going to go into the break at the top of the hour. We'll be right back with more about her book series, Division 1, after the short commercial break, and also your phone calls. The phone lines will be open. I'm going to post that in the chat room in a moment with the phone numbers to call in. We'll be right back.
We're told that our mistakes are all that we are. Cause that comes with giving up. Walk away from it all. Should we just give up? We are the blind, we are the lost. Run from all our mistakes. When we turn away, we are the blind, we are the lost.
If you like old-time talk shows, then you must tune in to Night Dreams Talk Radio. UFOs to Bigfoot, did we say black-eyed children? You'll find Night Dreams Talk Radio on TuneIn, iHeart, iTunes, and all the major apps. But on TuneIn, they're live 7 to 9 p.m. West Coast time starting in February. With all the major guests, Night Dreams. Do you have an interest in the paranormal? Well, tune in every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific on the Talk in the Night Facebook page for Ask Paranormal Phil. The show is a Facebook Live show where he gets into different topics about the paranormal and answers your questions. That's Ask Paranormal Phil every Tuesday night, only on the Talk in the Night Facebook page.
Do you have a talk radio, Facebook Live, or YouTube show and would like guests for your show but don't know where to go to get them? Well, go to radioguestlist.com and sign up today. They have all different experts in different fields, and you can find the ones that are just right for your show. That's radioguestlist.com. Sign up today. It's free.
I just want to move on, so I have got to be strong. I know I have to go on, that's why. And now I know what to do, although I know it hurts you, but I just can't follow through. I've got to let go of you, I've got to let go. I've got to let go of you, I got to let go. I've got to let go of you, I've got to let go of you. Got to let go of you, I've got to let go.
Call into the show, Skype Paranormal Phil, or by phone at 951-223-5055. And now, back to Talking the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil.
Okay, and we are back with my guest, Stephanie Osborn, as we talk about our ebook series. The phone lines are open, so if you do have a question for my guest and want to call in, I forgot to write it down in the chat, but the phone numbers, you heard them, but I'm going to read them, say them out loud real quick for you, just in case. Skype Paranormal Phil or by phone at 951-223-5055. Once again, the phone lines are open. So, get into the book series. How did the first book, Alpha and Omega, come about writing it?
Oh, geez. I actually I actually wrote a bunch of stories years and years and years and years ago, and but I couldn't do anything with them, and so I just kind of. But they were some of my earliest attempts at professional writing, but I never could manage to get anything done with them, and so I just basically shelved them. And then about 2 years ago, a friend of mine was like, Steph, you need a new series about, like space stuff. And I was like, well, I don't know. He's well, have you got something laying around that's old that you could take and you could brush up? And I said, yeah, actually I do. But no one of any of those stories was actually novel length. They were all basically just
short stories.
Short stories. They were probably long. They were probably like novelettes.
Okay.
A little bit longer than short stories. Usually they ran around. I found they ran around 35,000 words. A novel in science fiction tends to run. You need around 75 to 80,000 words minimum. So I pulled them out. First thing I had to do was I had to find them. It turns out that, and this will show you how far back I had written the original stories. They were on floppy disks.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yes, and a couple of them were actually on zip disks. So my husband got his hands on. My husband is amazing for all this stuff. He's a graphics artist. He's done all the covers for this series, and they're just gorgeous. But he got his hands on. He works for an engineering firm. He works for the same engineering firm I used to work for. But he works in the technical publications department, and they have to archive all of the reports and stuff. So they've got stuff that goes back to like the earliest forms of computer documentation, and they have to be able to access them. So he actually had zip drives and floppy drives that would plug into USB ports. And so he actually helped me rescue these stories off of this old storage media.
Yeah.
And so then I pulled them into my computer and pulled them into Word and read through them and just kind of cringed because, it's been probably 25 years since I wrote them, and I'm a much better writer now. So I'd read through them and I just kind of cringe. It's like, okay, the first thing I got to do is I got to fix these things. Then I can worry about expanding them. So that's basically what I'm doing is I'm going through and I had a story arc, and so now I'm going through and I read each story and I fix it to actually make it read decently. And then I start using my imagination, and I just start elaborating on it. And the next thing, I think every last one of them has wound up running between 110 and 120,000 words.
Wow, that's a lot of words.
It is.
As I know, I started on a book of my own, based off of like my experience in the paranormal field, and I got like one chapter done, and I haven't got into writing any more about it. But eventually, one of these days, I'll finish it because as soon as I about 6 months ago, I started working on a screenplay too for a paranormal movie based on the real events and true events and everything like that. But just writing is hard to come up with the storyline. Yeah.
I understand.
But
And for me, I've got a couple of friends that I brainstorm with, and they've begun to understand how I create, because I've been told that I write very cinematically, and there's a reason for that. It's because what I'm doing is I'm seeing a movie playing in my head, and then I'm writing it down. So if it's not happening, I may know what's got to happen in this scene, but I can't visualize it. It's not the movie reel is not playing. It's not running through the projector. Until that happens, I can't write a word on that scene. I have to be able to see it. And once something clicks and that movie reel starts projecting, man, it's like I can't write fast enough. I can't get it onto into the computer fast enough. I do sometimes write longhand still, depending on if I don't have access to anything else.
Yeah, that's how I am. It's like when I'm started writing my book, it's like, okay, because I tend to think, sometimes overthink when I'm writing and everything like that. How am I going to do this? How am I going to word this and stuff like that? And sometimes it messes me up, and everything like that.
Well, it's really interesting because once that movie reel starts to play, all the words and everything tend to fall into place, because I know exactly what words I need to use to describe a given thing. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to explain, but it just happens.
Yeah, well, one of my listeners is author herself, so she understands.
Tell her thank you. It's really kind of fun. And I also don't write, and this is evidently different from most writers, from the ones I've talked to. I don't write sequentially. I write like a film script, a film shoot. They'll shoot a few scenes over here, shoot a few scenes over there, and then they all get spliced together in the editing room. And that's actually kind of how I work too. I may have, it's not uncommon for me, especially if I get stuck on something, I'll actually go off and open up a brand new file, and just start writing in it. Because if I don't have those other words on the page staring at me, saying, you need to fill in from here to there, it a lot of times will flow easier. So I'll open up a brand new file and just start writing that sequence there, and then I go back and I start I work out where in the overall story structure that needs to go, and then I'll splice it in. I'll cut and paste or copy and paste, which actually kind of works well, because sometimes I'm working on this book over here and I got an idea for this book over there that's like 3 books in the future, and rather than try to hope and pray that I remember that the scene that I just got an idea for, I just go ahead and write it. And then I've got folders for each one of the titles, and I just plunk that file over into the folder for that title, and I'll stick it in there when I get to it. And then I'll go back to writing on the one I'm supposed to be working on. So yeah, it's kind of, it's a little weird, but I enjoy it. So
now, how did the characters for each book series come about?
For my different series, or for
the ones in the Division 1 series?
Oh, I sat down and I looked at
actually, we got a call coming in.
Okay.
Let's see.
But I sat down and I looked at what I thought would be interesting and what I thought would be needed for such an organization.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if I can. Okay, you're. Let's see if we can get them in here to the group. Okay, you're on there. Maybe not. You there, Stephanie?
You got Steph on here. I'm not sure what happened to Phil.
Okay, yeah, I'm here.
There you are.
Yeah, I was trying to. Oh, there we go. There's the listener.
This is Mike.
Hey, Mike. You're on there.
Hey, how you doing today? How you doing? Sorry I'm so late tuning into the show. I just got back from an Irish band group here in town, and here in Copper. I had to go to listen to a bunch of Irish group.
Okay.
My apologies. I just want to let you know that your listener is really good. What you're all doing is pretty good. I love you guys dearly. And everything she's saying is true. Everything she's saying is up and up. And I'd like to know if I can get a book of hers.
Okay.
I would love for you to get my books. Everything that I've got is available on Amazon. It's available in print. It's available for Kindle. And you can also go over to Barnes & Noble and get it in print and in Nook.
Oh, good. I'll see what I can do about getting it the first chance I get.
Okay.
And everything you're saying is up and up.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I do my best to give when I'm on something like this, I give you the straight stuff, and I don't try to make something up or anything. It's I'm not. I've been accused of lying and being part of a conspiracy or whatever. Nah, that's not who I am. That's not what I am. It's not anything that I care to do.
I hear you. But I've been accused of that too, so don't feel bad. So you're not the only one out there. It's because people don't want to hear the truth, so that's the problem.
Well, they think it's kind of like since we're talking about Men in Black, I'll do a quote from the movie. People don't want to hear it. They think they got a good beat on things.
The truth of the matter is they just don't want to. That when it comes down right to it, they just don't want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's basically what it boils down to. And because if they hear the truth, they're going to be scared. They're going to be scared. They just don't want to hear it, basically. And that's the problem. What's going on worldwide? Not just here in the U.S. It's other places in the world. They just don't want to hear the truth.
Yeah, so true, Mike. All right.
Different movie quote. You can't handle the truth.
That's basically what it is.
All right. Well,
keep doing the good job. I'll support you, and I'll get people to support you, and I'll get people out there to help you out any way I can, Phil. You know that.
yeah.
And I'll get some of the hand operators out there to help out too. So I'll get the word out there one way or another. So.
All right. Thank you, Mike, and thank you for your call.
Okay, you take care, Phil. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening. Bye. All right. So, like we were talking before the call, and everything like that, I was asking about how the characters came to being and everything like that.
Yeah. I sat down. I've worked with enough different government entities and government organizations. I kind of understand how they operate. So I said, okay, if this is a regional branch of a galactic government, then it needs these things and it needs these positions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, okay, let's have some fun with it. And it was like, let's see how interesting I can make the characters filling those positions. So, Megan McAllister, who becomes Agent Omega, winds up, she's your basic white bread all-American girl, until they find out that things are not what they appear to be, and not even she knows that. And so she winds up being not quite so Okay, she winds up being not at all quite so white bread. Agent Echo turns out to be his mom was full-blood Lipan Apache. Then they have their backups. That together, Echo and Omega comprise the Alpha 1 team.
Okay.
The Alpha 2 team is made up of Echo's previous partner, Agent Romeo, and his current partner and paramour, Agent India. Romeo is a black man. He is an extremely skilled Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL. He was recruited directly from the SEALs. Agent India is a beautiful Afro-Asian woman. She was recruited from. She was the top ER physician in a large hospital in New York City. And then you have the director of the agency, who goes by the code name Fox, and he has an extremely convoluted past. He's Yiddish, and he's old enough to remember he was actually imprisoned in his early teens in a Nazi concentration camp.
Okay.
And then you have the head of medical for the facility, which is Zarnix. Zarnix is not human. Zarnix is from another planet. He's a Chesserelzi.
Okay, because I was going to ask you about like the agents. Were all the agents human, or if they were extraterrestrial?
Most of the agents, there are facilities, there are branches on each of the inhabited worlds. So, for the most part, on any given world, the agents there come from that world. If you think about it, it kind of only makes sense. But that said, you do have some transfer, within, and so you want, if they're on Earth, as a general rule, they have to at least sort of kind of look human or be able to pass for human some kind of way. But for the most part, the majority of the agents on Earth are human. Elsewhere in Division 1, there's the Gluguic species it comes from another system within Division 1, but not within our solar system. And so the majority of agents on the Glugic homeworld are Glugic. So there are a few interagency transfers. What's the phrase I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Like the students, where you ever had students from like Europe when you were in high school or something?
Exchange student.
Exchange students, yeah. You do have a few exchange students here and there. And in fact, there are even a couple of instances. There is, for instance, the Atlantis office. There are offices. The main headquarters is in Brooklyn, but there are offices all over the world, including the McMurdo office in Antarctica, the Los Angeles office, the Atlantis office, which is underwater, etc. And so the Atlantis office actually has an Earth-originating agent who is not human. Herbalon Vex is actually an octopus.
Okay.
And his friends call him Clack because he has a beak. An octopus mouth is a beak, and so his his native language, if you will, is a series of clacks.
Okay.
And he did learn to speak English.
Okay, so
He speaks it with an island accent, but because that's where he learned. But he speaks English.
okay, so almost like I said, I'm hearing a lot of similarities to the movie Men in Black, stuff like that, like the guy in Men in Black 3, where the guy in the post office and stuff like that.
Well, there's going to be similarities simply because there are similar concepts.
Yeah.
Was I trying to? No,
I'm not saying that you were.
I thought about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and the way I play it is not at all the way they play them in the movies.
Yeah.
So it's I'm going in a completely different direction with it.
Yeah.
I'm just using the same urban legends.
Okay. Now on your book series, were a lot of like the worlds that these different agencies were in, were they kind of based on true worlds out there, or just kind of made up?
A lot of times what I do, my background, I've got multiple degrees. I've got graduate and undergraduate degrees in astronomy, physics, chemistry, mathematics. I grew up watching Star Trek and inadvertently wound up mimicking Spock. Didn't realize I did that until actually about 10-15 years ago. And then it was like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. Anyway, my principal graduate work was in astronomy. So whenever I can, what I try to do is I try to go to the catalogs of exoplanets, and I try to actually find a real exoplanet, or at least an exosystem, a system where we know that it has planets.
Yeah.
And then I'll give it. Okay, this our word for our planet is Earth. Their word for their planet is whatever, But what that really is Gliese 298b or whatever, So I try to actually assign it to an actual system. I don't always, but I get a kick out of doing it. So whatever.
Okay.
It's kind of a way of using my education and training. So.
Yeah, it's always fun to throw, especially in a fiction book, throw something out there like a real, like in your case, a solar system or a planet in another system or anything like that, just to make people think, okay, could this be real, even though it's fiction?
Exactly. And I have a lot of fun with that. Some of my other series, not the Division 1 series, I've actually had fan mail is like, how did so-and-so react when such and such happened in the news? And then towards the end of the email, these days fan mail usually comes as email. Towards the end of the email, the person caught themselves and was like, oh, I can't believe I just did that. So, but I figure if my readers are reacting as if these characters are real people, then I've done a good job, and that makes me happy.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So we are gonna go into the final commercial break here. We'll be right back with more of your phone calls. If you want to call into the show and ask my guest any question about her time in NASA program, the shuttle disaster, or even her book series, phone lines will be open after the short commercial break. We'll be right back.
And I screen your calls, 'cause we don't talk anymore. I'm cleaning out my house,
you want to know how to attract love, money, jobs, success? Well, check out livelifemadeToorder.com. If you go to the products page and mention Talking the Night, you will get 50% off of your order. That's livelifemadeToorder.com. Be sure to check out the show's website at talkingthenight.weebly.com for some great content such as Story of the Day, This Day in History, and much more. Also, if you missed the show, check out the show's archive page under the radio show tab where you can find all the shows listed. And be sure to sign up for the Talking the Night newsletter. Do you have a paranormal team? Are you a small-time author? Do you have a radio show that you would like to promote? Is there anything that you would like to get the word out there about but don't have a big budget? Well, Talking the Night has an opportunity for you to sponsor the show without breaking your wallet. Contact the show at talkingthenight@outlook.com or on the show's website or Facebook page for more details.
Everybody gives you advice, yeah, on how to live your life, how to live your life. Don't you know that life is full of surprises? You better realize, nobody knows what's in your soul and how your heart works. Nobody knows, nobody cares. It's time for you to live your life, yeah. You can do it right now. Oh, you can do it right now. You can do it right now. You can do it right now.
Call into the show, Skype Paranormal Phil, or by phone at 951-223-5055. And now, back to Talking the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil.
Okay, and we are back to the last segment of the show, the last half of the show, the last half hour of the show, I should say, not the last half, because we've already entered the last half about half an hour ago.
We're in the last quarter of it now.
Yeah. And of course...
Time out, no, never mind.
No, that's what Skype's trying to tell you by playing those ads during the call. Time out.
Yeah. Just all at once, Skype starts throwing up ads in the middle of the whole thing here. I don't need advertisement in the middle of my calls. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a fun ride. I'm really having fun with this series, and I write with a distinct sense of humor. My characters have a sense of humor. They like to banter. They get jokes. They have in-jokes. There's stuff that I may bring up in the first book, and then 4 books later, all at once, somebody's making a joke about it. So that said, you don't necessarily have to read them in order. You can read them out of sequence. I think it works better in sequence, but you don't have to.
Okay, so yeah, I was going to ask, is like movies, there's part 1, or part 1, part 2, part 3, and it goes in sequence, unless it's Star Wars, where it just goes out of sequence. But
but yeah, you get each one is an individual story, standalone story. But the characters, I would say that overall there's a character arc that runs through the series, but each individual book is a separate story.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to ask, is it something like follows up, going back to the MIB movies, like part 1 and then part 2, it goes off of part 1 where Agent K left and a new agent came in.
The characters grow, but no, not really. I mean, occasionally I do things like sequence off of the previous book or whatever. the book 4 is Tour de Force. Book 5, which just came out, is Trojan Horse. Trojan, and those two, Tour de Force ends, Trojan Horse picks up, like minutes later.
Okay.
But, it's still its own separate story.
It's still just its own entity, basically.
Right. It just so happens that the story starts within minutes of the previous book's leaving off. So, that kind of thing. But you don't necessarily have to have read the previous book for it to make sense.
Okay. Now, the next book in the series after Trojan Horse is Texas Ranger. Now, is that set in the West or is it just in the basically West?
It's literally set in West Texas. It turns out that that's where Echo is from. And so they actually, at this point in time, Alpha 1, Echo, and Omega decide they could use the vacation. So it turns out that his old family ranch is being cared for. It's being held in trust for him by the agency should he ever want to retire and move back there. And meanwhile, it's being used. Its cover is that it is a dude ranch, and other agents go there for vacations. Occasionally, aliens come there for vacations. Humans that don't have a clue come there for vacations, and so this winds up being where Alpha 1 decides to go for their vacation. Except they get there and they're just starting to unwind, and they discover that there is a group of aliens being smuggled across the ranch. And when I say illegal aliens, I'm not talking about somebody from across the border. I'm talking about somebody who ain't even from around here. And so the first thing that they have to do is find out who are these guys and why are they here and what are we going to do about them. And so from thence, hijinks ensue.
Okay, so you had like you said, a touch of humor to the book series.
Oh yeah. I have a very inconvenient sense of humor. I was known to have to bite my tongue sitting in meetings with NASA management and astronauts, and somebody said something that struck me just so, and now I'm sitting there trying not to giggle.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, so that's just kind of me, and so I have fun with these books. The characters have a sense of humor. Sometimes the situations they get in, I've had people just rolling on the floor laughing, while I'm trying to do a book reading because I'm reading one of the funnier scenes and they're cracking up. So I like to say that I write with my tongue planted so firmly in my cheek that it's poking outside.
Alright, yeah, now I did have a question if I can get my chat to go up here real quick. Okay. Let's see, now, your time in NASA, were they using any kind of light beams, using telescopes to detect other planets out there?
Well, that's all we can use is telescopes. I'm not sure what they mean by light beams.
Okay.
You're talking about, light beams do us no good if you're talking about something like a laser or something like that, because the nearest star to us is Proxima Centauri, and it would take 4 2/10 years for us to get a laser beam that far, and then another 4 2/10 years to get any sort of anything back. So you're looking at almost a decade.
Yeah.
That's assuming that you could power a laser powerful enough to be detectable at that distance.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, like, look at how long it would take for a manned space crew to actually get to, like, Mars. I mean, look at how long it took the Mars rover to get to Mars and everything like that. So, and that's in our own solar system.
Right. Most people don't realize, they think, oh, lasers are very tight beam. Well, they are. But even so, if you take a pencil-sized laser beam and fire it at the moon, by the time it gets to the moon, it's spread out to where it's almost a meter across.
Yeah.
A yard across, for those that don't know metric.
Yeah.
So, and then it bounces back and it's spread out again. So it, and that's just,
Well, I and of course I'm just kind of speculating, but like you were talking about, it spreads out. But like, say if it was like a beam of laser beam light was shot from like the Hubble telescope and everything like that out to something, and it bounced off of it and came back. Could it be used for something like that to detect planets that we might not know about?
No. Once again, you're looking at decades of travel time for the light, and two, it really is. It's not using something to focus a laser beam is not really going to make a difference over those kinds of distances. A light year. I mean, the moon is something like 250,000 miles away. Okay, but 1 light year is 6 trillion miles.
Okay.
All right, now multiply that by 4.2, and that tells you how many miles it is from here to the nearest star.
Yeah. Yeah, so it would take forever and a day just to find that.
Well, yeah. You're looking at 25 trillion miles.
Yeah.
One way.
Yeah. Long trip to go.
Yeah, boy. Oh, like I said, Proxima Centauri is the closest star to our own solar system, and it is 4.2 light years away. So round-trip travel time for a beam of light is on order of about 8.5 years. And like I said, that is assuming that you can generate enough power to get this thing to have an intensity that that anybody can even read it at the Proxima end, and twice that to get it back. Now, what we're doing is we're using, to be able to detect these exoplanets, there are a number of different techniques that are being used. They're all based on traditional astronomers' techniques. One is you pay attention to the star, and you use very, very fine measurement to determine the star's position, and then you watch the star over time. Stars move. They move through space. They're orbiting the center of the galaxy. And so as they move, if there's anything orbiting it of significant mass, it's going to tug on that star. So you're going to see a very, very, very tiny wobble in the star's position. And it's going to be systematic. It's going to be side to side to side to side. And so if you watch a star and you detect that the star has a wobble in its motion, then it almost certainly has something of substance, something massive orbiting it. How much it wobbles will determine how big the object is. If it's a big wobble, chances are what you've got is like a black dwarf or something orbiting it. If it's a teensy wobble, then you've probably got a planet or more than one planet.
Okay.
Another thing that astronomers do is they look at the brightness of the star. This is something when my graduate work was in variable stars, and about half the stars out there are binary. Stars tend to come in pairs, orbiting a common center of mass. And if they happen to be oriented just right, one star passes in front of the other and eclipses it. And so if you're looking at the system and you're measuring the brightness, as one star passes in front of the other, well, now suddenly you're only getting the light from one star, so the light actually dims to get an eclipse.
Yeah.
Well, planets can do that too. The dimming is just much smaller, and so we've actually gotten good enough with our instrumentation, though, that we are now actually able to start seeing these tiny little eclipses as a planet moves in front of its star relative to us, relative to our line of sight. So these are the two primary ways that astronomers are finding all these exoplanets.
Yeah, because I know a listener sent me a thing about NASA's biggest find yet, with a question mark, but Earth's twin discovered. And have we might have found something like that, or something?
Not really, no. I mean, there's always. I get really aggravated at the news, what passes for science reporting in the news media, because they don't know science and they don't get it, and they write all these bombastic reports, and I just want to cringe, because then I get people coming up, well, haven't we discovered another Earth? Well, no, we've discovered another planet that is at approximately the same distance from its star that Earth is.
Okay.
However, it turns out it's probably a good deal bigger than Earth.
Yeah.
And, it may or may not have anything like a surface as we know it. It might be a gas giant.
Yeah.
So... But then the news media goes all hog wild, because if it's the same distance from its star, it must be like Earth, surely.
Yeah.
Well, no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got a group on Facebook called Lady Osborn's Pub, and there's a lot of people in there that they like science, they like science fiction, and they like small animals, like kittens and stuff. Those tend to be the three things that get discussed in Lady Osborn's Pub. And so I'm all the time, every time,
science and kittens.
Science and kittens, yes, and science fiction. And so whenever there's a discovery like that, somebody invariably will, if it's not me posting it, somebody will post it in there, and I'll usually get questions. And it's kind of nice, because these guys, they know that I know my stuff. I know what I'm talking about, and I will if the report, if the article is totally messed up, I will tell them so.
Yeah.
And I will tell them, no, here's the way. Here's what's really going on here. Mm-hmm. And I will tell them, and a lot of times they will take what I have to say about it and the article, and they will share it to their friends. So I'm actually kind of getting a chance to teach. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's the same way with me with the paranormal field. Like I said, I've been in it for 25 years. So even though I'm helping people, I'm also teaching people about this stuff, because back when I started in the field, there wasn't these TV shows. There wasn't a lot known about it and everything like that. So I was learning as I went. But nowadays, with all the TV shows, there are people that see the TV shows and think, I can do this. Well, guess what? Those TV shows, they edit out a lot of stuff, and they don't tell you the full story.
Yeah.
So I end up having to teaching people about this stuff.
And some of them are just kind of, they're not in it for finding out the truth. They're in it for, let's scare and shock people, you know?
Yeah, well, I've had people ask me, why are these shows done at night? Well, the simple answer is the creepy factor.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. I have talked to some ghost hunters that did it professionally, and they did say that some places did tend to be a little more active at night, but that it wasn't necessary to actually do all the stuff at night.
Yeah,
they usually go in the daytime and do all their setup.
Yeah, well, no, I've seen spirits during the day, so it doesn't mean that it's at night. And of course, a lot of people, like I said, see the TV shows and think, okay, it has to be done at night. The 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning is a haunted hour. No, the spirits don't know our time and space, so of course they're not gonna. Like I've told people before, they don't know our time and space, so they can go to Pluto if they wanted to.
Sure.
But yeah, no,
it would be nice to be able to do that.
But yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I use my experience in the field to teach people things, and I'm helping people, but I'm also at the same time teaching people, and that's what you were talking about the science stuff, teaching people, and so it feels good to do.
It's cool. I don't know about you, but I enjoy that feeling that somebody has learned something because I said something right.
Yeah. All right. So we got about 7 minutes left in the show. I wanted to have you let people know where they can find information on all your books, not just the Division 1 series, but all the other books.
Sure. The best way to do that is probably to go to my website, which is www.stephanie-osborn.com. And it's Osborn spelled with as few letters as you can get away with, Osborn. You can also go to, I've got an Amazon author page. So you can go to Amazon and just do a search on my name, and it'll pull up my books. I'm also on Instagram as the Interstellar Woman of Mystery. I'm on Twitter as @WriterSteph, and I'm on Facebook as Stephanie Osborn. I think I'm also on Google Plus as Stephanie Osborn.
Okay.
Come by and ask a question.
And of course, I mean, they can get the books through your website, correct?
Well, generally what I do is I've got purchase links to Amazon or Barnes Noble or wherever they're available. And you can just click through and use your preferred purchasing setup. You know, if you've got an account at Amazon or an account at Barnes Noble, click through and get it that way.
Okay, now where like you mentioned Amazon and Barnes and Noble, is there other places where people can pick up your books?
Yeah, a lot of my books, most of my books run through Ingram distributors. So, you know, it's pretty much most major bookstores, book chains will carry my books. If they don't actually have them on the shelves, you can ask them to order them.
Okay. So, yeah, everybody loves the show tonight and everything like that. They're saying that you're a very informative guest and everything like that. They love what you had to talk about and everything like that. They love the show. And that's why
I haven't been coughing my head off through it.
Yeah, that's why I said the 5-star ratings that I got on my Facebook page for the show, nothing less than 5 stars. It's because I do ask the tough questions at times, but the guests are very informative, which you were, and of course I'm gonna have to bring you back at a later time when you get new stuff out. So
Sure. I'll be happy to.
But we got 4 minutes. I'm trying to get my computer to stop acting up. I want to mention about it's saying Firefox is not responding. Go figure. Okay, so I want to mention about like I said, you can find the links to Stephanie on the Talking the Night website, talkingthenight.weebly.com. Of course, what we got coming up Friday night, of course, we got open lines where you, the listeners, can call in, share your stories, experiences, or even ask a question about the paranormal and other things. Because the paranormal, yes, I know a lot about, but I do have knowledge in other fields. And then, of course, next week's schedules are up on the show's website, so be sure to check that out. Once again, talkingthenight.weebly.com. And of course, I'm trying to get my computer to stop being stupid. But yeah, no, you were definitely a great guest on the show. I had a great time talking with you about your work in the NASA, and yeah, sorry about the loss of your friend and the shuttle disaster, but definitely the book series, it definitely interesting. It sounds like something that, and I don't read a lot, but it would be something that I would read.
Well, you know, I have tried to make it fun. I figure if it's fun for me writing it, I hope it will be fun for the reader as well. So, yeah, I'm glad. I've enjoyed being on the show. I'm so thrilled my voice held out. I have been sucking cough drops continually the whole time. I'm sick of eucalyptus.
Well, just think in a couple minutes you can stop sucking on those cough drops.
Yeah, boy. But yeah, I had a great time, and I would love to come back anytime you want to have me. I
will be glad to get you on maybe later this year or later on down the road, anytime, and everything. So yeah, my listeners are saying, hope you feel better soon.
Thank you. I hope I do too.
All right. So once again, until Friday night when we have open lines where you, the listeners, can call in, I shall see you on the dark side. Good night from Talking the Night. If my thing will play here. There we go. Oops.